Welcome to the Furry, Birdy Yoga Odyssey. Yoga Odyssey? Uh, Episode 3. I'm Jason, and thanks for joining me. So if you remember in one of my previous videos, I sound like I have like a library. I talked about reducing things in there from one form to another in complexity. Like if you take a sun A and break it into its component parts of reverse swan dive, flat back, plank, up dog, down dog. You can then take each one of those and move and reduce them in complexity down into individual components. And you can do this with everything. We do it all the time as a society in things like turn-by-turn directions or recipes. Syllabus for a class is another place. But you can do it with emotions, too. You can do it with conflict, relationship conflict. You can do it with schedules. You can do it with a lot of stuff. And if I take that idea, and I hold on to that idea for a minute, and then I look at this other concept, which is critical, it's fundamental to yoga, which is to reduce unnecessary tension. What is unnecessary tension? Well, it's in its simplest form, it's unnecessary tension. If you're trying to bake a cake, and before you bake the cake, you have to drive 60 miles to get an ingredient that's not, that might be considered unnecessary tension, right? Maybe that's not a very good example. If you're in a yoga pose, we'll do it this way. If you're in a yoga pose and you're supposed to be in your high plank and you feel pain in your neck, you shouldn't. Your neck should be relaxed. The high plank structure is in your core, in your hamstrings, in your glutes, in your thighs. You should feel tension in other places, but you shouldn't have a cramp in your neck. And there's a whole bunch of different ways to look at that unnecessary tension. And if we look at this other idea, communication and being an effective communicator means you have to have your message accessible. We pull all of those things together for a minute. And we look at this very simple bit of wordage in yoga practices. An instructor will say, on your next exhale, try to let go of something that does not serve you. What does that mean? What are they talking about? And it could be a lot of different things. And it's going to be a lot of different things the more you ponder it. And it doesn't have to be something permanent. If you are holding on to a whole bunch of tension because someone cut you off on the highway, and you look at what that is by deconstructing it into pieces, you can trace it down to a fight or flight response. There's a bunch of psychology written on road rage and what we feel when we're in our cars. And when a vehicle cuts us off, we take it as a personal affront sometimes. Not all the time. But our car becomes our personal space. The boundary of the vehicle becomes our personal space. So if you're sitting there in class, and you've got all this tension from this situation. I'm pointing. You can't see me. I'm pointing over there. This situation over there. You don't need that right now. You can let go of that tension. You can talk to your body. You can talk with your internal monologue. You can say, hey, I got it. We're safe now. We don't need that. That doesn't mean you're going to dump your fight or flight reaction. I mean, you can't, first of all. Second of all, it's pretty handy. It does come in handy. I mean, it's a useful thing that we have. Think of that idea all over the place. Everywhere in your life. You can take something that's really complex and you can reduce it into smaller pieces, and then you can figure out why you're holding on to those pieces, and maybe you can let go of some of those pieces. And that's what I take from that, having put together some of these lessons, and I bring those three ideas letting go of unnecessary tension, making my message accessible, and breaking things down into smaller pieces. I try to use those 3 ideas everywhere in my life now. And it sounds a little ridiculous because it's only been a few days. I mean, it's been like 5 days. 4 or 5, I don't know. A handful of days since I started yoga training. And so then I come out and I'm like, I apply that to my whole life now. It's just amusing to me. Those are my ideas. Those are my thoughts. And I wanted to share them. I'm looking forward to class today. I don't know what it's going to hold. I'm fortunate in that I get to have a lot of out-of-class instruction. And you know what? I'm going to cut it here. This is my before-class video. I've been trying to get my videos down smaller and smaller, so we're going to cut it right here. Thank you very much for listening. And, yeah, take it easy.